Hello there and welcome back to my YouTube channel and to today's video all about how to pass your upcoming PM, that's the F5 ACCA exam, when all else seems lost to achieve 59. And I know just the gentleman who can help us and walk and talk us through his experiences of passing the PM exam. And I'm delighted to be joined today by the lovely Joe. I mean, feel free to introduce yourself, Joe, and your experience with PM for everyone listening in.
Absolutely. So thanks, James. So my name's Joe. I'm an ACCA student at the moment, and I've been lucky enough to stumble across James's material online, and unfortunately he's been stuck with me for 9 months now.
But you have passed PM, Joe. That is the key thing. And what's been your experience passing it?
Just honestly opening that text and seeing it beginning with a P was just unbelievable, especially after having some unsuccessful challenges with PM in the first instance. So just very, very glad to get it out of the way, I guess.
Hey, getting that email, that message, that text message, seeing the P for pass on there. How did it feel? Good feeling?
Oh, unbelievable. But unfortunately, I was doing dry January when it came through, so I was drinking my innocent smoothie to celebrate.
Well, we're going to walk and talk through your experiences to help someone out there who may have the exam tomorrow, next week, whatever it may be, from your experiences that you've been through it. I mean, what's the first sort of tip that springs to your mind from all those attempts that you had through it? First thing that someone watching this needs to do to pass?
I think definitely the top tip for me, and it definitely comes from you reiterating the point, is answer the actual question that is being asked. Don't answer the question you want to answer, and try and really come back and reference the scenario. So try and not make your answers generic, try and reference and quote the scenario if you can, and ultimately just really pay attention to what's actually been asked. I think that was probably my biggest downfall, James.
Absolutely spot on. I mean, it's all section C. I'm right in thinking, Joe, on here. The 20
100%.
markers. It's if you read the external examiner's reports, they say the same thing all the time. If you're generic, you're going to be struggling. If you're specific, you've got a better chance on there. But what about sections A and B? What sort of springs to mind? Arc back to all those nights of revision. A and B tips on there. What are your thoughts on that?
Honestly, just hit as many questions as you can. So I guess the way that I tried to approach it was I mean, each to their own, of course, but I mean, for me specifically, I quite like to cover the syllabus in advance, so I can just get a feel for the topics, what kind of formulas, etc. I need to learn, and then basically starting to hit the questions and just going through the full question bank, if you like, and doing them to time. Definitely. It's the only way that you can get better. I mean, for me personally, it was a case of learning the syllabus, doing the questions to time, and then really reviewing those answers and really having a log of why did I get them wrong? Was it something I didn't know? Or was there a variation in something that I thought I know? And jotting it down, getting a logbook of all the mistakes you've made, because as you told me before, it's the ones that you really do make the mistakes on that you remember. And that's the sort of key in the exam, I guess, for A and B for me.
And from the revision purposes, I mean, what advice have you got on revision? I mean, how early should you start revising for PM? What about the transition from syllabus to revision? I found that to be a sort of thing as to a key stepping stone to getting you that pass mark.
Definitely. Oh, it's so subjective, this bit. I mean, everybody has their own style, but I mean, my style is probably set a date sort of 2 to 3 months out and sort of snail my way through it to begin with, in terms of go through the syllabus, sort of relaxed approach. So I would maybe do that for about 4 weeks, go through the full syllabus, and just sort of slow pace, nothing too strenuous. And then I guess from the 2 month point, it's really starting to hit questions. hit questions. You're going to get them wrong the first time, the second time, the third time, a little bit better the next time, a little bit better the next time, until the point where you've hit everything and you've got a logbook of all the things you've got wrong. And then obviously from about a month out, it's really just hitting past papers all the time. Textbooks away, revision notes away. I just want to do papers and mark them.
And
so time management stuff.
And out of interest for the viewers, so we're completely clear, how many past papers did you go through before your PM exam?
Goodness. I don't know. I don't even know if there was enough on the ACCA website.
I think you ended up doing all of them in the end. It was mental on there, but going into the exam, obviously it's computer-based exam. Have you got any tips for someone who's doing the PM exam on there? What are your thoughts on the computer-based system? How should they approach it to help them maximize the marks?
I think the main thing for me was going in with a proper plan, i.e. a proper time strategy at how I was going to split up A, B, and C. Again, this can be, you can go through the traditional route of 1.8 minutes per mark or something like that. Yeah. Or you can judge by when you're doing past paper questions, okay, section A, B, or C, what am I generally hitting on or below the time constraint? And understand, okay, well, I'm probably going to do section A, for example, for me, was quicker than what the requirement was if you're to do it 1.8 minutes. So therefore, I sort of gave myself, say, instead of the 54 minutes, maybe 45 minutes for A, and then spread that sort of 9-10 minutes of extra time across B and C.
Yeah, bit of a buffer in it, isn't it, so to say?
Absolutely. And I mean, like I say, everybody's each to their own. Everybody will know what their strength is. Maybe somebody's better at the narrative-based section C questions, and therefore they might think that they could do it quicker than the hour and 12 for the 2 Cs, and then kind of buffer out the time elsewhere. But have some sort of time strategy and really stick to it. It doesn't matter if I could get an extra mark. The advantage of moving on and cracking on with the other questions is more, in my opinion, valuable than getting that extra mark and taking up that time. I don't know about your thoughts.
Completely agree. And for the record on here, when you and I first started chatting about PM and your first attempt, and you came back to me and said, James, I got this mark, I didn't pass it. I said, how many marks did you do in the exam? Oh, I didn't think I did enough on section C, and I really rushed on section B. So what are your thoughts on doing and making sure you've done the full 100 marks? I presume that was your approach on the final exam when you passed.
Absolutely. I mean, the likelihood is, I mean, again, it's completely down to the person, but I found in my personal experience, if I don't finish the full paper, I don't pass the exam. It's as simple as that. So again, it comes back to this bit where if you're going to drop a mark or two, then you drop a mark or two. Yeah. You move on. You don't need to get 100%. You need 50%. So, completing the full paper is so important. Yeah. And to me, it's the difference. In fact, the difference between sitting at this time and last time was not in terms of the knowledge and the actual content I covered, but it was time strategy and actually finishing the paper. I think that was the real difference.
Spot on. And what sort of structure did you have? What did you start first with? How did it go in the exam? I mean, arc back to it,
So I started with A, one, because I thought it was my strongest area, but two, because it was a case of, for me, it was the least thought that had to go into it. It was, A, B, C, D, and a lot of them were 1 or 2 sentences. Yeah. So you just knew straight off the bat whether you knew it or not. I then went on to section C, went to completing section A, because I knew that this was my most problematic section. Yeah. So after calming the nerves with A, I really wanted to get into the most challenging portion of the exam. I guess just to build my confidence with section A, thinking, this is going well, build up my confidence to the hardest portion of the exam. I split it up into, so I did like maybe an hour on section C at this point, went to section B, left myself with some time to go back to C to kind of run it over for about 12 minutes. And then that was the exam done, James.
Yeah. And mistakes from previous exams, I'm going to say probably leaving section C till last, probably running out of time? Is that sort of what happened there? I mean, there are people watching this going, I did that, James. I mean, it went wrong for me, but what are your thoughts on that?
Yeah, definitely. I mean, for me personally, because I found Section C most challenging and because it requires the most thought, if you're really running against time and you haven't watched that clock and you come up to Section C, it's going to be very, very challenging to get the full amount of narrative down, to get the full mark allocation. And I think it's really important to note, actually, that I think people maybe have a perception that performance management is very much calculation based, in the sense that the majority of it's calculation based, but that's actually a flawed perception, because there's a lot of justification and narrative required. I think you said could be even 50-50 in this exam.
All about application as well. There are obviously going to be calculations, you've got your variances on there, you've got it's break even topics that are probably going to come up on it, but the end of the day, you just got to balance it as well. And those Section C questions, there's a pool of them that could come up, but you've got to have attempted every single one. That you've got to back yourself on the day that whatever comes up, I can have a real good go at that as well on there. Wouldn't you say? I mean, how was your approach on the day? You're a bit nervous at it? I mean, there'll be people watching this a bit nervous for it, maybe.
Yeah, I mean, at the end of the day, you've just got to trust yourself that you've done all the hard work on the day. Try and make sure that you go in as calm as possible. Plan everything out, have a good breakfast, bring some water to hydrate yourself. You're in there for a long time. And just got to remember, you've done what you can do.
Yeah. The time as well. The time as well, just we touched on it, that you've got to tell yourself to move on. That was the other thing, which I think was a changer for you, that we've got to move on. And I remember specifically when you and I first got chatting as to, James, I've got to know this, I've got to know that. No. The expectation of there will be things on that exam, would you agree that you just, think back to the exam you did. What's the stuff on that you went, I'm really not sure on that, and I can't even remember going through the syllabus on those sort of areas? Yeah,
definitely. I mean, this, in my experience so far, my ACCA journey, PM is the exam that literally could quiz you on absolutely anything. In other exams, I've noticed in, say, the Section C section, that they favour particular areas, whereas here, literally anything could come up. So, I mean, one bit of advice is not to question spot in this exam, but to literally, it's hard work. It does take a while, but go through the syllabus, because then you'll come to the exam and you'll think, I could have a good crack at anything that comes up. That's a position you want to be. You might not be 100% certain of everything because the syllabus is just that big, but that's okay because you only need 50%.
Yes, but you've got to attempt 100 marks to give yourself the best opportunity of getting that as well. I mean, I get messages from people, I did 80, 85. That's where the time management comes into it on that. I mean, is there anything else that is sort of coming to the front of your mind now to say, right, James, if I've got to do that PM exam again, which I'm sure you'd love to do, Joe, I mean, but what bits of advice would you give to any student out there from that we haven't already covered that sort of springs into your mind now? You couldn't sleep tonight if you didn't say it.
I guess, I mean, this is maybe sort of generic, but for those who think that this is maybe an exam that they are really, really struggling with, like, it's like their nemesis exam, I would just urge people to really plug away at it, and it will come. As long as you have a robust plan, you put in the effort to go through the syllabus, you go into the exam day with a time management plan, you have a great chat, and also that you answer 100 of the questions, then you really have a great chance of passing. I failed it a few times, and I was at the point where I thought, I can't do this, but we got there in the end. So literally, it's just to reiterate, to really urge the people that are finding this difficult that you can do it, sort of thing.
Yeah, and to add context to that, I mean, you've done the audit exam, passed on there. You've passed FR as well, wasn't it? As well.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah.
And you go, probably walked into PM going, well, what were your first thoughts when you first went into PM for out there? I mean, arc back and you go, gosh, pass these exams, pass that one, how's it going to go?
Yeah, I thought it was for me. It was just an exam that didn't click in the same way that auditing and financial reporting did. So I really did require a lot of hard work. What did I think? I thought that it is not a predictable exam, quite frankly. It's not something that you can pinpoint the individual questions that are going to come. You just need to cover everything. It's as simple as that. I remember saying to you, James, that I can't recall exactly what it was, but there was something that was maybe on 2 pages of, say, like a 450-page textbook, and it was worth like 10 marks. So if you didn't cover it, that's 10 marks. So
yeah.
That's where we're going with that.
Yeah, but I mean, for anyone who's watching now, they're going, oh, I completely get where I'm coming from. I'm quite a structured person. I mean, with FR, income statements, balance sheets, audit, there are certain procedures, everything on those lines. And then you come to PM, where you've got business application on there, and you've got to think about what you'd be doing in that scenario as well. I mean, are there any other what was your change in mindset on there, Joe, from your experience? Did you think about businesses? Did you put yourself in that position?
I think in terms of answering, I suppose this part of my answer is specific to section C, but what I did was I focused my answer more on the specific scenario in question. So for example, if somebody in your workplace asked you for advice, you wouldn't just kind of relay to them what the legislation says and given no context in terms of what the person's actually asking.
Yeah. So
therefore, it was really important that I did things like quote passages in the scenario that really backed up or supported or substantiated my point. Try to just think of, like you say, I think real world situations, So for example, if the profit's been driven down because of increased competition, mention that fact.
Yeah.
Mention that fact. I think that was probably one of the biggest pluses from section C, and also just using the sort of key phrases that you came up with. So things like, talk about performance, talk about stakeholders and things like that. Just have a few key words that you think, how can I round off this sentence by referring to performance stakeholders, or even one sentence to say profit has increased because.
Yeah,
simple as that.
Absolutely spot on. And then just referring to those key terms and the requirement. I remember seeing some of your work at the start and then afterwards. It's just a different level now as to he's picking up on those key terms, even writing down the companies or individuals' names and taking chunks from the actual scenario. Just takes it onto that next level to get you into that 59. But for the record on here, when Joe and I first met, I said to him, we'll do a recording because I know you're going to pass. I know you can do it. So for anyone out there who's maybe failed PM before and you just can't see the light at the end of the tunnel, Joe, it is there, isn't it? It is there. And how did it feel to get the pass mark?
Oh, it felt amazing. I never thought it was going to come, to be honest. I never thought it was going to come. So yeah, no, absolutely. For those out there that think that they cannot do it, they absolutely can. And, I think it's really important to mention the fact that, certainly from my perspective, you always meet those people that pass exams first time. And it just seems so rosy and easy. And there's a big population out there that are not like that, and they find it very, very challenging, and they might fail a few exams along the way, and they might even get disheartened. But I guess it's just to reiterate the fact that it can be done, and that there is a way. Wow. But it felt amazing. Oh, don't get me wrong, it felt amazing.
Well, I knew this day would come anyway, and I'm sure whoever's watching this has got some great tips out of it, no matter when you're doing the exam. So, I mean, Joe and I would love to know where you're watching this, and also how you get on in your exam. If it makes a difference, it would make my day, Joe, if we got a comment or two oh, because I watched this video, I got 50 or I got 51, or hey, if it means a 99, I don't mind. But yeah, let us know in the comments below. I read them all. I'm going to send them to Joe as well. But as I said, Joe, thank you so much for all your tips, insights today. You're definitely going to help someone out there. And which exam is it going to be next?
So it's going to be financial management in June.
Oh, you're in.
So you're already laughing. You're already laughing.
And he's in for a treat. Well, guys, if you've enjoyed today's video, make sure you subscribe and like so you get access to all the free videos. Like I said, Joe, thank you so much again for your time this evening. I think you're going to help a few students out on that, and could be the difference. I think, Joe, 48s, 49s will now turn into 50s and 51s on there. But as ever, I hope so. Joe, I told you this on the first time we met. It's not a hope so, it's a no so. You'll be fine. But on that bombshell, we will see you next time. Cheers.